Babysitter's Club books by Anne M. Martin were first published in 1986. With the help of Scholastic book fairs and order forms, they became one of the most popular YA series of the 80s and 90s. Over the initial run of the series, there were 131 primary books published, along with dozens of specials, super specials, mysteries, and that's not even counting the whole Little Sister series. There was even a TV show and a movie in the 90s. 2 generations later, these books have been repackaged and transformed into graphic novels and adapted into a hit 2-season Netflix series. Now the great pop culture debate wants to pore over all the books and decide which entry is the best Babysitter's Club book of all time. I was a babysitter as a teenager, but I would never be a member of any club that would have me. I'm your host, Eric Rezsnyak. Please help me welcome my panel for this episode. First, it's the panelist who non-famously bought and lost Marianne and the Memory Garden to Walt Disney World. It's Amma Marfo.
A friend sent me a new copy in 2018, and I had never been happier to that point. I finally know how it ends.
After all this time, justice. Well, welcome back, Amma. Next, as a tween babysitter, she had a babysitting nightmare exactly like Dawn in the Dawn and the Impossible 3. It's Chen.
I wish I had written that job down in the Babysitter's Club notebook so that other people would know.
Well, now you yourself actually are a YA author, so welcome, Jen. We love a full circle moment. So glad to have you back. Next, she is a total Kristy at work, a Marianne with her 4 cats, one of whom is named Tigger, and an absolute Mallory with her family. It's Joelle Boedecker.
Oh, thanks, Eric. It's totally dibble to be here.
That sounds delightful. I have no idea what it means. And finally, she wanted to be a Claudia, but she's actually a Kristy. It's Karissa Kloss.
I really just want the Lindas to write a song about me.
And refusing to go to bed without another snack, we have Bob Erlin back inside the producer's booth. So in the interest of time, we are going to skip the preamble, which you can now find in a bonus primer on our feed. But do head to greatpopculturedebate.com and find the listener bracket for this episode so you can play along with us at home. Note that I have never read a Babysitter's Club book in my life, so I will merely be moderating this discussion, not actively voting unless a tiebreaker is needed, and then I will go by the most compelling argument. With that out of the way, let's get this meeting of the Babysitter's Club started and move on to these debates. First 3/4 of the panel doesn't want 1 seed Claudia and the sad goodbye to leave, but Karissa wants to take another bite out of the big apple that is 4 seed New York. Amma, why would parting with goodbye be such sweet sorrow? Karissa, it's up to you. Explain that if New York can make it past this round, it can make it anywhere. I'll have Karissa go first.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose this, and that's fine. I really just wanted to talk about the super specials because they were really super and very special. They're like triple size new books. I mentioned this a little bit in the warm-up, but I got one for Christmas a lot of years. There was always a book in my stocking, and the regular Babysitter's Club books I mostly just checked out from the library, but I owned a lot of the super specials because that was what my parents saw. And I mean, what Santa brought me in my stocking. And
important correction. That's right. Yes.
Right. And so like vivid memories of lounging in my beanbag chair with my new Cabbage Patch doll and my super special book. So New York is when the gang goes all the way to New York from Connecticut. And there are, stunt shows and shenanigans. I remember, I think it's Dawn is like, really, really afraid of the crime statistics and like refuses to go outside. Yes. She's just terrified. It's been a long time since I read these, and that's the memory that really sits with me. But this is mostly a nostalgic pick for me. And so if I am not swaying anyone from the actual emotional quality of Claudia and the sad goodbye, I am happy to bow out.
Well, let me go ahead and ask, has anyone been swayed? Joelle, are you sticking with Claudia?
Just on principle alone, I have to stick with Claudia and the sad goodbye. But I just read it for the first time in 30 years today. And there's the scene when like everyone's parents leaves or drops them off at the train station. Like everyone's entire family wishes them off on a 30-minute train ride from Stony Brook to Grand Central Station. That's it. That's the trip.
Yeah.
Adorable. Jen, are you sticking with Claudia and the sad goodbye?
I'm sticking with Claudia till the end of time. So yes.
Oh, all right. Amma, I'm assuming you're sticking with Claudia.
I sure am. I really like New York, New York. It, to me, is one of the more memorable super specials, not having revisited a lot of these in a while, but I can't kind of ignore the memorable nature of Claudia and the Sad Goodbye. Like, being a first-generation American, wasn't really close to my grandparents, so it was kind of a peek inside of a relationship that I could have had but didn't. And really kind of having to learn about loss, like, of a grandparent from that. Because when my grandparents died, it wasn't that type of situation just because I didn't know them that well. They died when I was fairly young, and they didn't live in the US, so I remember meeting them maybe once or twice. So it was really educational for me to kind of see what that relationship could look like, and then what that grief could look like, and how to support friends through it. And I think it's really lovely in that way. And it's, again, beautifully adapted in season 2 of the Netflix show. But yeah, it's such a memorable part of the series that to have it go out this early wouldn't feel right. So apologies to the state of New York and to Karissa, but I am standing on Claudia and the Sad Goodbye. Yeah.
The state of New York has had enough. It has its enough wins, right? So we're going to let Claudia move on to round 2. Next, the panel is evenly split between more farewells in 2-seed Goodbye Stacey Goodbye and unwelcome additions in 3-seed Dawn and the Wicked Stepsister. Joelle, pick a fight in hopes of getting Dawn in to win. Karissa, try to keep Stacey from saying goodbye to Stony Brook in this bracket. Joelle, you can go first.
I will start by putting my cards on the table that Stacey was never my favorite. She was just a bit of a we'll get into it. I just found her
sophisticate. Is that what it is?
No. Her boy craziness made me crazy, I think, was the issue with Stacey. Her priorities were always out of order. But I didn't really love Dawn all that much either because I couldn't find her very relatable. That said, Dawn and the Wicked Stepsister, just Dawn's Wicked Stepsister, the entire story of Dawn and Marianne becoming sisters was so interesting to me because as a child of divorce, I found the whole step sibling thing fascinating. I never got step siblings of my own. I just had my brothers wherever I went. But I always wanted a stepsister. That was so cool to me. And so when this thing happened in these books and we saw the parents start getting together and then they were talking about moving in together and I was like, this is great. And then they didn't get along and then they figured out how to become best friends again. The whole story, like to this day, I was reading it again and I was like, I remember these moments. I remember her convincing Marianne that the room was haunted. Like everything about that book was very special to me, and it felt like almost educational at the time, which is, I think, a theme we're going to hear a lot as we go through all these books. It was important at a time in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting that from even what Amma was saying about the last one, Claudia and the Sad Goodbye, is there's an educational component, an emotional educational component, as well as an entertainment component. Jennifer, were you going to say something there?
Oh, I was just going to add that I think it's also of that time period, like parents were getting divorced, they were having step families, like sort of the era where that was starting. And I think too, it also has this sort of Parent Trap-esque quality to it because it's like they reunite, they haven't seen each other forever, and Dawn and Marianne are friends. It's just a really sweet storyline. But it's also, I think, when you're like, oh, I can't wait to have my best friend stay over forever, and then they get into fights and they're like, I can't stand you. That's what I felt was really realistic, because it's like, your best friend's going to be annoying if they're over your house all the time.
One of the best things about the 2 books back to back, this one and the one right before, is that they have a Haley Bills marathon in it. Very on the nose. It's beautiful.
I mean,
with the OG Parent Trap, which we don't have time, but I will cape for that one every single day and twice on Sundays. So
yes, I'm with you.
Love it. Karissa, talk to us about Stacey, specifically. Which one are we? Goodbye, Stacey. Goodbye.
First, I was going to ask Joelle, since you just read that one, is that the one where Marianne's dad measures the peanut butter that he spreads on his toast? It's like precisely 2 tablespoons. I have a vivid memory of reading that when I was like 10 and being like, what?
That one's not jumping out at me, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did it at some point.
Yeah, it's something that Dawn sees, not Marianne.
I see.
Or Marianne wouldn't comment on it. Anyway, Goodbye, Stacey, Goodbye. I just today read the graphic novel version of this that recently came out. It's really lovely. My pick for this is more of a nostalgic pick too, because when I was in 6th grade, my best friend moved away from Wisconsin to Texas, and her parting gift to me was this book, which was one of the only actual editions that wasn't a super special that I owned. So it's such a sweet thing. It's about how to say goodbye to your friend who's moving away. Also, she moves to New York from Connecticut, so it's not like she's moving to California like Dawn. It's sweet, and they like to have a yard sale and have a party with all the babysitting kids there. I don't know why they want to spend their free time babysitting a bunch of kids for no money at the party and then having to care for them, but that's what happens. But they send her off with some really sweet things, like a mural that they all draw, and it's just is a nice send off to a character, and also honestly for me, like educational in that way. How do you cope with your friend leaving? Because Claudia has a really hard time.
Excellent. Jennifer, where are you on this one?
I'm going to go with Dawn in The Wicked Stepsister. It's just a nostalgic favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Amma, how about you?
I think I had originally said Goodbye Stacey, but I'm feeling flipped. I'm feeling as though Dawn's Wicked Stepsister is going to take this one.
All right. So I believe that is 3 for Dawn and the Wicked Stepsister. So it will advance into round 2. Next, the panel is currently leaning toward 4-seed Stacey's Emergency, but Joelle wants to give 1-seed Abby's Lucky 13 a bat mitzvah present. Amma, why should the panel rush to the aid of Stacey in her emergency? Joelle, explain why everyone should celebrate Abby's Lucky 13. Joelle, you can go first.
Well, I'm going to start by pointing out that I am currently sitting in front of my bat mitzvah collage from when I had my bat mitzvah 28 years ago. Christ. And I'm in my childhood bedroom, by the way. Just had to go full, like in, what is the term when you're like in the acting? What's that called?
Method.
Method, yeah.
Thank you. It's like meta is not the right word. Anyway, Abby's Lucky 13. So I actually stopped reading these books a little bit before this point. I never met Abby until much later in life. I didn't know they introduced a Jewish character. If I'd known, I would have kept reading. I had moved on to like, I don't know, Girl Talk at that point, or who knows what I was reading. But going back and reading it now, I have discovered a character that was written for me. Anna Martin must have called my family and said, what does Joelle need? And she wrote me this book. She wrote me this character. She is a comedian. She has a twin sister. This girl's got asthma, but she loves sports. And then she and her twin sister finally turned 13, and they have their bat mitzvah, and it's during the wildest time in her life. She literally gets suspended from school. She accidentally buys like a study guide that it turns out it's actually like a test, and she was cheating and didn't know she was cheating. It's really dramatic.
Yeah.
I remember when I was this age going through my bat mitzvah, everything was going wrong. I was sick. My friend gave me something that sounds a lot like what I have right now, right before my bat mitzvah. And I remember being so angry at the entire universe. And so reading this book brought me right back to that time in my life. I just think it's a special moment, and it actually acknowledges a Jewish character for the first time, I think, ever in the series, which I also love.
Excellent. And I'm sorry that you're going through all of these things again, but there is some kind of like beautiful synchronicity to all of this.
I'm okay with it.
Talk to us about the emergency, please.
So when we talk in general about the educational nature of the Babysitter's Club books, I want to stress that it's not in like an after school special type way, or even in like a Degrassi type way. And I love Degrassi. Like, that would be a whole separate episode that I would be wildly outspoken on.
Let's do that one day.
but what I will say is, I would say probably one of the closest ones that came to like the standard type of like educational, like there's a lesson here, is Stacey's Emergency. So Stacey is diabetic. Those are the two things you always know about Stacey. She is from New York and she has diabetes. And this is kind of one of the early times where you see the rest of the club members have to deal with her kind of managing it and what happens when it gets out of control. There's also a subplot about how her parents are dealing with it and how it affects her parents' relationship. They're divorced and had been kind of uncooperative in raising her, and her having this emergency gets them to kind of reconsider how they interact. But yeah, someone who didn't really know a lot of kids who had chronic illness, like growing up, like it was something that I learned about. So like I have friends that are diabetic now, and I'm like, oh, I have some information because of Stacey from the Babysitter's Club, but nonetheless, like it's stuck. It's things that you remember. And then real quick to the point about Abby, I remember when she was introduced, because there was kind of like a reader poll of like, if there was a new babysitter, what would you want to see represented? And apparently the two most common things were someone who is Jewish and someone who has asthma. And so you get Abby, who is also a comedian, which I love. And I love Abby, but this particular book, like, it's another one that like sticks for me very clearly.
They gave the people what they wanted. Yeah, I love that. Jennifer, where are you on this one?
I'm going to go Stacey simply because I don't know Abby. I had stopped reading before she was introduced. And I will say that Ann Martin has said that people used to write to her because they knew about that they were diabetic because of Stacey. And I thought that was just really important because they didn't recognize the symptoms until they would read the books and be like, oh, that's how I feel, or that's how my parents feel, or whatever. So she said that people got diagnosed because of Stacey. So that's why I'm going to go with Stacey's Emergency.
The Babysitters Club was changing lives,
Saved
y'all.
lives.
It was actually making, seriously,
Literally saving lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
Karissa, where are you?
Yeah. Opening hearts and saving lives. I'm with Stacey as well.
All right, so we will be moving Stacey's Emergency into round 2. Next 3/4 of the panel wants to keep learning Jessi's secret language, a 2-seed, but Jennifer seeks to crown 3-seed Claudia, queen of the 7th grade. Karissa, ensure that Jessi's secret language gets interpreted into round 2. Jennifer, why should Claudia reign over this matchup? Jennifer, I'm going to have you go first.
Okay, I will admit I didn't read Claudia, Queen of 7th Grade when it came out because it came out in 97 and I was graduating high school. So I just read it recently. And what I love about it is she actually gets held back into 7th grade. So she does 7th grade twice. I love that it's like the anti-Asian stereotype. That sounded wrong, guys. That sounded wrong. That sounded racist. I didn't mean it like that. I meant it was it was the opposite of the stereotype of like, you're a genius and that's all you do. She actually wasn't. She needed extra time to learn. And I think that was a great thing. But also she has a kiss with a boy. And I'm like, I didn't see any Asian characters have kisses with like boys in 8th grade. And she also has a side pony on the cover and she dresses amazing. Ugh. And nostalgically, I have the cover as a painting. And I just feel like it's how I feel about Claudia is how everyone's looking at her in that cover. They're all adoring her. And I'm like, that's exactly how I feel. So that's my pick. I'm sticking with it.
Wait, Jen, did you buy that from How to Swallow? Like the actual painting?
I did. I was like, what Claudia covers do you have? He gave me a list and I was like narrowing them down. And it was like Claudia and Mean Janine or this one. And I was like, I think it's got to be the one where like she's got the side pony because I feel like
the side pony.
Yeah, yeah.
Mean, who doesn't want a side pony?
That's amazing.
So yeah.
We live for a side pony, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a homosexual and I try to do a side pony whenever my hair gets long enough. So thank you, Jennifer. That's amazing. Karissa, talk to us about Jessi's secret language.
This is a hard one for me because Claudia is the fucking coolest, man. Yeah. Like she really, really is. And she was queen of 7th grade. It was, but Jessi, I think this is Jessi's first book from really where she gets to star. Mm-hmm. And she's of the newer she's of the younger, they're not little sisters, but she's best friends with Mallory.
She's an associate member, junior member.
Member.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're 11 and not 13. So, but Jessi is new. She moved there from, I think it's someplace in New Jersey. Yeah.
Oakley, New Jersey.
Yeah. And and her parents let her stay out a little later so she can take some jobs. And so the plot of this book is that she ends up sitting for a kid who is deaf and she learns sign language pretty quickly. She's also a dancer. She does ballet and she draws a lot of parallels between sign language and dance as using your body to express yourself. She organizes a thing for the kids from the deaf school to come watch the ballet where they can feel the music and see the dance. And it's a really lovely way of drawing together language in a couple of different ways. And we get to really know this new character in a really sweet way. And I just read the graphic novel adaptation of this, and it's really lovely. So this is my pick here, but it's really hard because Jessi and Claudia are kind of my favorites.
Yeah.
So
Jessi's Secret Language is a great book, and I read the graphic novel with my kids. Amazing. We learned sign language from it. Yeah. I have no qualms with it. I'm just a Claudia fan. So yeah.
Amma, where are you on this one?
This was a tough one for me because if you asked me which babysitter I would like to be, I would say Claudia. But if you asked me which babysitter I am/was, it's probably Jessi. So these two are really entwined for me. I'm going with Jessi in The Secret Language here. Again, it's one of those like really nice things where we didn't really know kids who were deaf or would never have been curious about ASL had it not been reading from a book about how it could be kind of something that you embrace and can show other people and can be like kind of inherently valuable. And it does the thing where it's like, oh, ASL is not like dance, but not in a way that Dangerous Minds is like poetry is like rap. Like it's a little bit more like holistic in that, and just kind of encouraging other kids and other sitters to reach out and make a connection with this charge that they didn't think that they could. It was really beautiful and really nice to see like kids, like 11-year-olds being like, you can do this, encourage them.
Excellent. Thank you. Joelle, where are you on this one?
Yeah, so I mean, confession, I read 40 of these books in the process of getting ready for this. Audible read 40 of these books in the process of getting ready for this. And only 2 of them made me cry, and this was one of them. And that being Jessi's Secret Language. I thought the whole, ballet thing at the end was absolutely beautiful. I do think we have some really great Claudia representation in the bracket, so I'm comfortable letting this one go. It's not my favorite Claudia book at all.
Well, that means we will be advancing Jessi's Secret Language into round 2, but we will always stand Miss Claudia, the kiss, and that side pony elegance, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Next, twin unanimous decisions. Better get paid extra. 1 seed, Kristy's Great Idea had no affinity for 4 seed Logan Likes Marianne, while 2 seed Marianne Saves the Day ruined the fun of 3 seed Dawn and the Big Sleepover. Next, the majority of the panel is adamant that 1 seed Keep Out Claudia rejects the advances of 4 seed Dawn and the Impossible 3. Jennifer, why should the panel keep Out Claudia? Joelle, tame Dawn's Impossible 3 and carry them into the next round. Joelle, you go first.
So this is a tough one because Keep Out Claudia is really an important book. I'm just going to put that out there. But Dawn and the Impossible 3, I will call it one of the seminal books of the series. It is the 5th book. It is the first Dawn book. It is a book that is filled with the Babysitters Club learning exactly who they are and where they fit into this community and what their role is as babysitters versus babysitting the parents, because that's how complicated this Impossible 3 situation gets. Dawn has to become the adult for the entire family that she is babysitting for. There's a whole freaking thing with a missing kid and they think he's in a sewer, but he's not. The dad took him. It's a whole thing. It's drama. They made it fantastic when they did the Netflix series of this episode. I think that it's just one of the most important as far as structure and as far as where this book series goes. And it's hard for me to pass it up, despite the fact that I know how important Keep Out Claudia is.
This is an audio medium, so you can't see that virtually every other panelist was nodding along to everything that Joelle was saying there. But Jennifer, talk to us about Keep Out Claudia.
Okay. Dawn and the Impossible 3 was my actual life as a babysitter at that age. I babysat for a family of 3 kids who were horrible, and I got paid $10 an hour. So I feel the pain. Keep Out Claudia was the first time I actually understood microaggressions of racism. And as a kid, because basically this family, Claudia shows up, the kids make fun of how she looks because she has funny looking eyes. That's what they say. And then the mom doesn't want her to babysit ever again. They're like, any other babysitter but Claudia. And then Jessi shows up and literally the mom's like, oh, I don't need a babysitter. Slams the door in Jessi's face. And Jessi's just standing there like, what just happened? And then when Marianne babysits, they're just the loveliest children. And I'm like, I think it was the first time as a kid, I was like, oh, this is what racism is. Like, I'd experienced things like that when I was a kid, but I didn't have someone I didn't understand it the way that it was clear in this book. And I just reread it. It's a little clumsy. There's definitely some clumsiness in the 1992 version, but at the same time, I feel like it's the first time I think anyone had introduced blatantly, here's racism, and this is why these babysitters aren't even allowed in the house. So it's important in that sense. I think I love Dawn and the Impossible 3, but I think this book is I think would get banned today by, moms who don't want their kids to know about racism. That's how I feel about it.
Seriously.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of references in here that I was like, wow, they mentioned like Native Americans. Like,
there's a whole fiddler on the
Yes.
roof component towards the end
Yeah.
that made me just like hurrah a little bit. So yeah, it's they really encompass just about everything you could be racist and anti-Semitic about. Yeah.
Also, the cover has 3 blonde children who were like, no, Claudia, you're not allowed in the house. And I was like, whoa, like this is just really.
They look like demons, those children, frankly.
Yeah.
The children of the corn versus Claudia. All right, so this is a tough one. Karissa, where are you?
I'm with Keep Out Claudia. The importance of what it showed me, a white girl growing up in Wisconsin. That was not my world, but I accessed it through here. So
Great. Amma, where are you on this one?
I'm with Keep Out Claudia too. For me, it was not the first time I'd experienced racism. Oh, we got there well before this. But the idea of how kids around me could support me, that was new because it wasn't really something that I could go to my friends and talk about. My parents didn't really equip me with that either. So the idea of being in a close enough group of friends that they would kind of push back for you, speak up, and like try to learn what you're going through, like that was really nice to see. So for that moment, I'll give it to Keep Out Claudia.
So that's 3 for Keep Out Claudia, which means it will advance into round 2. These both sound like excellent books, so thank you, Joelle, for your great argument on Dawn and the Impossible 3. Finally, in round 1, the panel is evenly split between 3-seed Marianne's Makeover and 2-seed Boy Crazy Stacey. Amma, why is Makeover deserving of a brand new start in round 2? Karissa, why do you have a crush on Boy Crazy Stacey? Karissa, you go first.
all right, Boy Crazy Stacey. This is exactly why people didn't like Stacey. I just reread this one, read the graphic novel adaptation of it, and it is so good. Stacey and Marianne accompany the Pike family, so Mallory and her 7 other siblings, to a 2-week vacation on the Jersey Shore and spend all day, every day with those children on the beach, on the boardwalk, doing things until Stacey falls in love with a lifeguard named Scott, who apparently has a girlfriend. But in the meantime, she shirks all of her duties, makes Marianne take care of all of the children, which is insane because they're not awful kids, but they don't get along all the time. There's a whole side plot with the triplets fighting and, there's all this stuff. So anyway, what's great about this is you get Stacey being terrible and finally admitting that she's terrible, but you also get Marianne calling her out and at the same time asserting her own independence kind of from her dad. And I know that's where we're going with Marianne's Makeover. So these are both kind of like peas in a pod. This is like Boy Crazy Stacey happened so that Marianne's Makeover could run, like that whole thing. But also when I was reading about this book before I read it, I found the Babysitters Club wiki, which is immensely wonderful, and it had a bunch of cover editions or covers of foreign editions of this book, and the Spanish edition of this is called Stacey Loca por los Chicos. I don't know why that sent me, but it sent me. And they have oil paintings, but they're different, but it's like the same scene, but it's not. It's great. So anyway,
I need that on a t-shirt. I need that on a t-shirt right now.
Boy Crazy Stacey for me.
Amazing. I just say anyone listening to this, if you meet a lifeguard on the Jersey Shore named Scott, I guarantee you he already has a girlfriend. You don't even have to ask the question. It's just done. Talk to us.
Don't waste your hard-earned babysitting money on a box of chocolates, man.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Talk to us about Marianne's Makeover.
So first, this is an audio medium, but you all should know I have given myself a makeover in the course of this conversation because we were talking so much about side ponies that I went from a regular ponytail to a side ponytail. So I'm really living the ethos of this book. Marianne's Makeover is in many ways set up by what Karissa brought out with Boy Crazy Stacey, and that we meet Marianne as being a very sheltered child. Her mother's died. She's in the care of her father, Richard, who's very overprotective and strict. And this kind of represents her moving away from that image. So she buys new clothes. She gets a haircut. And then everyone else is like losing their minds. So they're like, who is this? And it becomes this whole thing about like, once you look different, are you still the same person? And how does it like show how other people see you? As the kid who was kind of sheltered and had to break out of that shell away from maybe what her parents would have chosen for her. And it wasn't like big leaps from like a fashion perspective, but there definitely was a period where my mom would pick out my clothes and then I would just pick different ones because she went to work before I went to school, and my dad was not paying attention. But yeah, it's just, it felt relatable in the sense of like, you're trying to figure out who you are. That's really normal for this age range. And even though a lot of these characters, because they quote unquote don't age, they don't change very much, it felt really monumental to kind of say like, you're in middle school and you do want to change. And what does that feel like? And how do your friends treat you? And it has a better resolution than every time they fought with Stacey about the same thing. So like, that's kind of a nice piece of it as well. So Marianne's Makeover stuck it out to me for those reasons. So I'm pushing it forward.
Team Makeover. Joelle, where are you on this one?
I'm definitely with Marianne's Makeover for reasons stated earlier. Not the biggest fan, and Stacey continued that trend of being stupid with boys at beaches for the history of the entire series. Whereas Marianne showing her strength and empowering herself and saying, screw you all, I'm going to do what I want to do. It's a beautiful moment for her. And that cover, for me, that's one that sticks in my head. I remember that cover and I was like, what did Marianne do to her hair? And I was so excited to read that book because of the cover.
Love it. Jennifer, where are you on this?
I'm going to go with Boy Crazy Stacey because I liked the book and I've read the graphic novel version, and the episode of the Netflix show is actually amazing. And Marianne's takedown of Stacey was just fantastic. So it
Yeah.
So we are split down the middle, which means I actually have to make a decision.
It's your time, Eric.
It's my time. And one thing that resonated with me was several were like, I wanted to be a blank, but I actually was a blank. And based on these discussions, I was a Stacey, where I was making bad decisions and doing terrible things with men. But I want to be Marianne, who's standing up for myself and asserting my personhood.
Oh, you want a Logan too.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know her, but any guy named Logan, I'm automatically going to think is probably hot.
Logan Bruno from Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, every part of that element. I'm even here for dyslexia. So for those reasons, I'm giving it to Marianne's Makeover. I'm sorry for Boy Crazy Stacey. Marianne's Makeover will make it into round 2. And that is the end of round 1. We're going to take a quick break to refresh our kid kits. We'll be right back after these messages.
$5 can't buy you much these days. In the 90s, a Big Mac Extra Value Meal rang in at $4.59. Today, the same meal will cost you $7.89 and leave you filled with regret. You know who would never do that to you? The Great Pop Culture Debate. For just $5 a month, our Patreon supporters gain access to a treasure trove of unaired content, like those secret fries at the bottom of the bag. So if you're hungry for some delicious pop culture content, pass on the Big Mac and head to greatpopculturedebate.com to become a Patreon supporter today. Aw, now I'm hungry.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
And we are back for round 2 of our Best Babysitters Club book debate. Before we get into the Elite 8, I want our panelists to share their social media, what else they're working on, and also how much you made as a babysitter back when you were a teenager. We're going to flip the script again. Karissa, I'm going to start with you. Socials working on, and how much did you make?
You can find me on Instagram at Karissa Kloss, or if you actually want to engage with me, you should become a Patreon and join our Discord, where I'm very active, talking about all the things that I am watching and doing, along with a lot of our other very intelligent panelists. And babysitting, I made $2 an hour. Did not matter how many children I was babysitting for. There was one family, their last name was actually Super. They were the Super Kids. There were 4 of them, and I still made $2 an hour every Wednesday night when their parents went to play beach volleyball.
So that's 50 cents a kid. That is bullshit. That was not Super. That is like the Aldi's of babysitting right there.
I used paper plates, so at least I didn't have to do dishes.
That's nice. That is good. Well, thank you very much, Joelle. Where can people find you, what you're working on, and how much were you paid?
You can really not find me on social media. You can follow my delightfully silly podcast, Pocket Pod, in all the places on social media, The Pocket Pod, and it's a podcast you can download. As far as what I was making, all through high school, I babysat for a kid and his dog, one child. He was 11, 12, 13, and his dog. I made $65 every Saturday for 8 hours.
What?
So that's $8 an hour if we're doing the math.
Whoa.
That is Stamford, Connecticut. Thank you very much. The place where all the babysitters wish they lived. That's the situation I had. That was the 90s.
Yeah, you were doing it right. I think the rest of us kind of got robbed there. Jennifer, talk to us about your socials, what you're working on, and how much you were making as a babysitter.
You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and X at Chen Writer. And I've got a YA book coming out tomorrow called Artifacts of an X. And I was paid $10 an hour for 3 kids who were very much Dawn and the Impossible 3 children. And I ended up ghosting that family so that I wouldn't have to babysit them anymore.
I think I support that decision and never met them. I do want to point out when Jen says that her book is coming out tomorrow, she means the day we're recording this is coming out tomorrow.
Yes.
You can enjoy it right now at any fine bookseller. So please go order a copy of that right now. We're very proud of you, Jen.
Thank you.
And Amma, can you tell us what your socials are, what you're working on, and also how much you were paid?
I can. So I am on Instagram and YouTube at Amma Marfo, all one word. On that YouTube, I have a half-hour comedy special that came out last year. I'm very proud of it. Please go watch it. It's a lot of fun. And let's see. Oh, I was paid, I believe, $5 an hour. My high point was $8 for a similar Impossible 3. The youngest of that Impossible 3 hit me in the kneecaps with a golf club when I told him to come back inside, and now I am child-free by choice. So these decisions make a difference.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Yes. So you can find me at Eric Rezsnyak on Instagram and technically X, but God, I want to get rid of it. Or just message at Great Pop Culture Debate on Insta or TikTok, or at GPCD on Mastodon. I was paid $1 per child per hour, and I think the most I was ever babysitting at any time was 3. It paid for my comic book habit for most of my middle school years, so I'm grateful for that. But yeah, man, cheap adults, like, what were you thinking? $1 an hour per kid? That is outrageous. So with that being said, let's break into Claudia's secret stash of Twizzlers and move into round 2. First up, it's All of the Tears as Claudia and the Sad Goodbye, which has a unanimous victory over 3C Dawn's Wicked Stepsister. But Joelle, you wanted to briefly speak about Dawn's Wicked Stepsister.
Yeah, there's one part of this book, there's a subplot of this book that I didn't mention in the first round. This is the part where we learn that the Pike family is pure chaos, and every single member of the Pike family gets injured and gets sick, and they're impossible to babysit for, including the parents. The parents literally hurt themselves while other children are falling out of trees and getting bronchitis. Hey, bronchitis. 3 kids get pneumonia. It is wild, this family. There's too many of them. That's the real moral of that story. So when I was reading that book, I was just like dying, just laughing at that part. So anyway, the book is not as important as Claudia's Sad Goodbye, but wanted to mention that.
In Boy Crazy Stacey, they have to take 2 minivans to transport everyone to the Jersey Shore. 2 minivans.
Because they wouldn't stop fighting, or there's just too many of them?
There's 10 of them plus 2 babysitters.
They had this lovely Mallory, and they had triplets, and then they kept going.
I know. It's too much.
4 more children.
There are 8 of them.
There could have been a whole separate book series, Too Many Pikes, but there wasn't.
Yes. Literally, 8 is enough. Take the memo. Yes. All right. So
is enough.
Yes.
Thank you. We will be moving on. Claudia said goodbye to round 3. Next, the majority of the panel wants to continue decoding 2-seed Jessi's secret language, but Karissa remains alarmed by 4-seed Stacey's emergency. Joelle, plead with us in ASL to save Jessi's secret language. Karissa, administer urgent aid to save Stacey's emergency. Karissa, you go first.
This is really tough, and if Stacey goes out here, I'm fine with that. I just want to reiterate some of the things we said earlier about this being a learning experience for a lot of readers who are initially encountering diabetes and what it means to be diabetic, although it does come up in the very first book when they find out that Stacey's kind of hiding some things and they don't know why. And then when she finally reveals that she's diabetic and Kristy says, oh, that's it? Like, because I know what that is. You just have to do this and this and it's fine. It's no big deal. This book is like part of this weird Venn diagram cross section of Babysitter's Club and also the subgenre of YA teen girl books where someone has a chronic illness, because that is definitely a thing. And I read a whole lot of those books about dying girls because we all did, right? Like
Lurleen McDaniel books. Can we talk about Lurleen McDaniel books one day?
Exactly, right? So this is sort of Babysitter's Club not doing that, but sort of dipping a toe into it. And it was kind of, I don't want to call it trendy, but it was a little bit trendy. So this book is that for the series. And that's what I think makes it remarkable. Not that it's a story about Stacey, but that it is sort of fulfilling a quintessential trope, if you will.
Excellent. Joelle, talk to us about Jessi's secret language.
Yeah, I mean, Jessi's secret language, we talked about it in the first round already, how just interesting it was that like Jessi learned this language. She taught it to the neighborhood kids. She incorporated it into her dance and welcomed all the kids from the school. These are all just beautiful moments. And then this kid that they introduce in this book becomes a regular kid throughout the entire series. And the fact that he's deaf becomes just a side note. Like they all learn how to communicate with him. They all learn how to incorporate him. And this book kind of teaches you how normalized that is. There's this whole other part about Jessi not being welcome in the ballet company that she joined, and they make her like the lead in the play, and the girls are all mean to her. And is it racist? Maybe. Like it's hard to say what's happening. Probably. But it's a really just interesting book from beginning to end. I think it's one of the most important ones in the series. So this versus Stacey has all kinds of weird issues with her diabetes. This was a big one, but I think when we learned the truth about Stacey, for example, that one's probably a better one, to learn exactly how it works.
All right. So, Amma, I could see you furiously flipping through your book as they were making their arguments. You needed to say something.
I did, yes. So we've been talking about a book called Paperback Crush. So those who are interested in books of this era, the YA of the 80s and 90s, there's a book called Gabrielle Moss's Paperback Crush. In it, there is a section specifically about the criticism of sicklit. So how we look at it now based on how long it has existed, which actually goes back to like books in 1872 where kids were sick. So they talk a little bit about how specifically female illness is shown in YA. So as you said, like sicklit as a genre, I was like, there's an essay about this. And I have tabs because this is a very important book to me. So yes, there's more.
Well, first of all, who wrote that book? Can you tell me the author?
Gabrielle Moss.
Thank you very much.
Paperback Crush.
Thank you. And secondly, can you talk to us about which one you're voting for here?
So I am going with Jessi's Secret Language because, again, I do think that it's one of those things where I not only appreciated the way that this kid was brought into the fold, but he does continue to be a charge. And it's one of those things where it's kind of understood that he is part of the experience. The other kids use what they learn in this moment to be able to interact with them. The other sitters do the same. So unlike some other things where it feels a little bit episodic, this episode has, or this issue rather, edition has implications for how this person is treated going forward. So it's kind of like a landmark thing in that regard as well.
Great. Thank you. Jen, where are you on this one?
I'm going to go with Jessi's Secret Language because what I thought was beautiful is that Jessi naturally teaches the other kids in the neighborhood so that he's not isolated. And that's like just a beautiful moment. And then he just becomes integrated and the kids think it's fun and cool. And I'm like, that's how it should be, So I think that book really is sort of the way that I wish things were.
Aspirational.
Yes.
I believe that is 3 for Jessi's Secret Language, 1 for Stacey's Emergency. I'm sorry, Karissa. That means that Jessi will advance. I'm guessing you're okay?
Totally fine with it, yeah.
Great, thank you. Next, the panel is evenly split between round 1's unanimous victors, 2-seed Marianne Saves the Day, and 1-seed Kristy's Great Idea. Amma, come to the rescue of Marianne Saves the Day. Karissa, explain why it's a no-brainer that Kristy's Great Idea should advance. Amma, I'm going to have you go first.
Man, this is just a day for me stumping for Marianne believing in herself, because there is another plot related to that in this book. There's a charge that needs care, and Marianne kind of like jumps in and does what needs to be done to make sure that this child is safe. It also becomes an instance of her kind of resetting boundaries with her dad. It's really lovely to kind of see her kind of go from like where she believes she's put and have her friends kind of support her in standing up for what she needs, as well as for the needs of charges, and using the latter to kind of inform the former. This is also a matchup of books that had Netflix adaptations, and the way that Netflix adapted this in particular was so lovely. So it goes from being a kid with illness to a kid who identifies as trans and is trying to get a doctor to respect that when they go to a hospital, having her first learn about it from Dawn, who's like, we all want our outsides to match our insides, so here's how you can help identify with this charge, rather, and then going to the hospital and kind of making sure that everybody there treats her as she would like to be treated, and then kind of uses that to kind of speak up to her dad and say, I'd like a little bit more independence. I think I've earned it. And it's just a really lovely moment. So there are a lot of things that the adaptations did beautifully, but the first and probably most emotional example of that was from this one. So fantastic book, beautifully adapted episode. So great.
All right. So with that being said, Karissa, we have not yet spoken about Kristy's great idea. Can you please tell us why you think it should advance here?
Oh, this is hard after Amma just said that, because that's the whole thing, is the Netflix series of this, which we haven't talked about. And like, it's not part of this conversation, but it is. It's really, really lovely. It is so good. Like, it is my comfort show. I save it so I can savor it. It is so wonderful. And the episode for this one is like tear-jerkingly beautiful. Like, it's kind of life-changing. It's lovely. But none of these would exist without Kristy's great idea. Like, that's the whole thing about this, is that the first book is Kristy figuring it out. And she has to use Morse code with a flashlight to sign it across to Marianne at night, because Marianne's father is so controlling. They cannot talk on the phone after, 7 or something.
Yes.
Like, so she Morse codes the whole thing, and then Marianne says, what? And she has to do it again. So it's like, great idea. New idea for a club. Lots of people meet at my place. So it's just, but you see her thought process of, here's a need, here's how I can meet it. I'm enterprising. I am a go-getter. I am a tomboy. I am all this stuff. But also, this sort of brings in the beginning of the blended family. This is when her mom starts dating Watson, the really rich guy. And eventually, Kristy, they will get married, and Kristy's going to move into the mansion in a different neighborhood. And it lays a lot of groundwork for where we're going to go. And I think what's great that you see in this first book and then continue to see is the way that the club sort of evolves, the way they figure stuff out. Like, Kid Kits did not exist for a long time, and then they figured it out, and then it becomes a thing. Partway through this book is when Kristy says, hey, we should have a journal where we all write about the kids so that we all know where to pick up when the other one left off. And you kind of get to see how it is a growing ideas, and you see these kids working stuff out and having ideas and implementing them right away. It's such a great example of enterprising young children. This is like next level lemonade stand, and they're making it work.
It's like Shark Tank and the Avengers all wrapped into one, but with child rearing. Yes. Joelle, where are you on this one?
I think this is a tough one, because Kristy's great idea, when someone says, what's the best book, it's almost impossible to not first go to that book before you move on. But I think when I look at that book, it is in every book of the series. You have the entire story of Kristy's great idea in every chapter 1 or chapter 2 of the entire series, to the point where you don't even ever have to read that book to know what's in it. And I think Marianne Saves the Day is actually educational. It's so helpful to understand where someone can go when they see an emergency and they don't know where to start and they don't know how to ask for help, and like they just feel helpless, and then they find their strength. I think it's a beautiful story. Kristy's great idea is smart, but Marianne's, I think, is more important.
Jen, where are you on this one?
This is like choosing children. So I am going to say that Marianne saves the day because the Netflix adaptation, like Amma said, was just brilliant, a beautiful update. It also shows Marianne going through this process of like, she actually asks for help. She gets help. She stands up, she speaks up for the kid at the hospital, which is really hard as somebody was a shy kid. Like, that's incredibly hard to speak to adults and tell them what's going on. I think it's a really great moment for kids who are shy to understand, like, hey, there's these moments that you can actually really shine. And Kristy's great idea is repeated in every single book. Every first chapter is a repeat of Kristy's great idea. So really, I think that's why I'm going to go Marianne.
All right, so I believe we have 3 for Marianne, which means she will move into the quarterfinals. Is that correct? No, I screwed up my sports metaphors. It was the semifinals. But thank you, Karissa, for doing a great job explaining Kristy's great idea.
Can I say one last thing about the Netflix adaptation?
Yes.
So the little girl who plays Bailey, I believe it is, the
Bailey.
young charge, is actually one of the youngest trans activists in Texas, Kai Shapley. So they got her to play this trans character, but she's also one of the ones that was very vocal as some of the anti-trans legislation her and her mom were coming down because it's like, it's not safe for us to stay here anymore. So she's kind of kept that high profile going, and it makes me very emotional to talk about. But I think that's also an additional really nice thing about this episode is that they adapted it in a way that shone a light on that particular issue. And now this little girl has the opportunity to keep speaking up because she had that visibility from the show.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Good. Again, it's amazing what this particular IP touches. The actual good it does in the world is pretty incredible. So thank you all for sharing it. Finally, in round 2, the majority of the panel is still steadfast that once you keep out Claudia should advance, meaning that 3-seed Marianne's Makeover is in danger of falling out of fashion. Karissa, why should we keep out Claudia? Amma, why is Marianne's Makeover the new look we should all get behind? Amma, you go first.
I really am just stumping for Marianne's doing great. I love it. And again, it's just one of those things where you get to see Marianne evolve and kind of show a little bit more personality in terms of who she is and kind of like finding who her own personality is, right? Because when you first meet her, so much of her is kind of what her dad has let her do. And you kind of get to see some of that growth over time. In some cases from, frankly, Marianne Saves the Day, it's kind of that seed being planted, and then she continues to build that up. She's one of the first in the group to get a steady boyfriend in Logan, which comes along in, I think, book 10, Logan Likes Marianne. So it's just this continued development of her growing, testing boundaries, never in a dangerous way, never in a way that feels out of character, but it finally becomes this physical outward manifestation of like, I'm different now and would like to be treated as such. And again, that just feels like an immensely relatable thing to be going through in 8th grade, where you're just trying to figure out, like, do my outsides match my insides? What do I want to look like? How much of this is my decision? How much should it matter that how my parents feel about it? So there's just a relatability about it in a way that, and it's not to say that the story of what happens with racism is not universal. Everyone should understand that. I'm going to say that again. Everyone should understand that. But I do think that there are storylines in this that kind of have the capacity to hit everyone. Got it. I like that about it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Karissa, talk to us about Keep Out Claudia.
Jeez, this is like really not easy because, like, man, Amma's driving home a hard point. But I'm just going to go back to the educational aspect. And I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. Everyone I knew was white. Everyone I knew was white. And so reading Keep Out Claudia was like, oh, wait. Because Claudia was my ideal. I wanted to be her. Every book she was, to me, presented as the coolest, the most ideal person that you would want to be. And I absolutely wanted to be her. The fact that she was Asian had nothing to, like, it's like, it's not even a thing in the book, which is so great about it. And then the book makes it be a thing, but from an outside thing. And it's just so so well done, so subtly in a way it doesn't beat you over the head. But there's lessons here, and it was something that I never would have experienced, but I wanted to be friends with these girls. I wanted to be these girls. And so I wanted to know all the things about them and all the things that they were encountering and how to be a good friend in this situation. And I would never have been exposed to this, especially at, the formative ages when you need these books are really about like empathy and kindness, right? And how to like be a good person. That's what they're learning. And if I encountered those in my 20s, it would not hit the way that it hit when I was 12. So it's going to be Keep Out Claudia for me, but man, there's no bad decision here.
Okay. All right. Joelle, where are you?
I just wanted to read this quote from Anna Martin about Marianne's makeover. I decided to give Marianne a makeover because I wanted her to assert herself. Also, I felt that at least one BSC member should have short hair. That's it. That's what she wrote. She wrote a whole lot more about Keep Out Claudia because it just has more meaning. And as much as I love Marianne's makeover, Keep Out Claudia is the one for this round.
Jennifer, where are you?
I think it's pretty clear it's Keep Out Claudia for me. And I will say Claudia was the first Asian American I ever saw on a book cover as a kid. And she was cool. She was cool. People liked her. And I think the fact that she experiences this made it very relatable for kids like me who experienced this in school and didn't have the Babysitters Club to defend me. So I think this book just has like a place in my heart.
So that means it's 3 for Keep Out Claudia, and it will be advancing into the final 4. With that, we have our final 4, folks. We're going to take a quick break to check on all 8 of the Pike kids. We will be right back after these messages. These days, there's so much great TV. Sometimes you just don't have the time to tune in, but you're still itching to know what happened. Or maybe you watched the episode and just want to yell into the void and see if others agree. Well, if you aren't reading our episode recaps, you're only getting 3/4 of the story. The Great Pop Culture Debate publishes weekly recaps of some of your favorite television franchises, so you can stay up to date without even watching. Head over to greatpopculturedebate.com and make sure you never miss a moment. And we are back with the final 4 of our Best Babysitters Club book debate. At this point in the show, I always like to take a step back and see if the final 4 matches up with where I thought we would go. Since I have no awareness of this topic, I'm going to ask my panelists. Joelle, you had some pretty strong feelings. Our final 4 is 1 seed Claudia and the Sad Goodbye versus 2 seed Jessi's Secret Language, and 2 seed Marianne Saves the Day versus 1 seed Keep Out Claudia. Joelle, what did you note that we were missing completely in this?
So I think just the way the bracket worked out, I'm really surprised there's no Kristy books in here. I'm really surprised there's no Stacey books because I know that the two of them are generally the more popular characters, but maybe not with this group. Maybe with this group, they are just not the most popular characters.
Did anyone else have any other thoughts that you're surprised by what made it?
Yeah, I'm surprised that Kristy's not here, especially Kristy's big idea, but I get it. And I think there's a weird reticence around Kristy. Like, I think I actually identify with her the most, but I really don't want to because she's so bossy and she's kind of a jerk. She apologizes for it, but you're also like, how much is she really? I don't know. So she's not the most fun character to identify with. So maybe that's why some of us are a little reticent to put her forward. And honestly, we all wanted to be Claudia, like everybody did. So it makes sense why she's double represented here.
Yeah, the prevalence of Claudia is not surprising. The fact that we managed to hit on an entire bracket of books that I don't believe have any parades in them, and these girls threw so many parades.
The baby parade.
Yeah, baby parade. They participate in parades for like Memorial Day and the 4th of July, and like the fact that we hit on 16 books and have narrowed to 32 books, narrowed to 4, and hit no parades is just statistically unlikely.
Yeah, no one made a float in any of these books. Like, that is wild. There's no orchestras and like children's music. Yeah,
no kids' costumes. Dang,
I've been creating a float this entire time. I don't know what you've been doing.
Did you also found a little league team for the neighborhood?
An alliterative little league team?
Yeah, please do not bring up Little League with me. That is going to trigger me. We're going to move right on to the final 4. It's 1 seed Claudia and the Sad Goodbye versus 2 seed Jessi's Secret Language. I'm going to start. Amma, you're going to be the first one this time. Where are you going?
Jessi's Secret Language.
All right. I'm going to move on to Jen. Where are you?
Claudia and the Sad Goodbye.
Joelle.
Oh, boy. I think I'm with Jessi's Secret Language.
And Karissa.
I'm with Claudia. Sad goodbye.
Oh no!
Eric, you know what the right answer is. You know what the right answer is.
It's so funny to me that you were all being like, I don't want to identify with Kristy because she's so bossy, and was like, I'm sitting right here, and here we are. I'm your Kristy now. Where is your God? Okay, so based on what we've talked, these are two very important books. What I've learned tonight is that Claudia and the Sad Goodbye is about saying goodbye to a grandparent. It's very moving. It's very emotional. Whereas Jessi's Secret Language is about a few different things. It includes elements of racism. It also includes elements of ableism, right? And what I like about what you all said is that, and I'm sorry, Jennifer.
Oh no!
Secret Language here, because the normalization of this element, I think, is really important, and I think very forward-thinking for a series that was. This probably came out in the 80s, I'm guessing. Or is this a 90s one?
I feel like Jessi's Secret Language was 90s. I'm going to look it up.
Okay. Yeah. But still very forward thinking for that day, when a lot of the times you had the very special episodes of a sitcom where you brought someone in who had some form of disability. They were given some pablum and then sent off, and you never heard from them again. And what I'm hearing from you all is that the kid involved in this is integrated into the series seamlessly, becomes a regular character, and the situation around it never even discussed. It's just they're part of the cast now. I think that's actually really cool. You were going to say something, Jen?
1988.
88. I think that's really forward thinking for this series. So as much as Claudia and the Sad Goodbye, it sounds like, was incredibly important, and it was very moving for a lot of people, I'm giving it to Jessi's Secret Language for the kind of forward-thinking nature of it. But we still have Claudia in the final four. In fact, we're doing 2-seed Marianne Saves the Day versus 1-seed Keep Out Claudia. I'm going to start back of the pack. Karissa, where are you on this one?
This one's also really hard, but I'm going to actually go with Marianne here.
Uh-oh, Jennifer's going to go crazy. Joelle, where are you?
So this is my bias showing, but at the end of Marianne Saves the Day, she adopts a little kitten named Tigger. It's just an important moment for me as a reader. I didn't mean to name my cat Tigger, but it happened. That said, Keep Out Fudge, man. I don't want to curse on a kid's book show.
No, don't. We've done so well. This is like our cleanest episode, especially one that doesn't have any children on it.
Oh my God, I hate saying this, but I think I'm with Marianne.
All right, Jennifer, where are you?
This is really hard because I really love Marianne Saves the Day. It's like one of my favorite books, but I'm going to go with Keep Out Claudia. I just want everyone to look up that cover of Keep Out Claudia, because there's a side pony serving vest, serving leggings and cowboy boots, and the 3 blondest kids you've ever seen in your life wearing the frilliest clothes imaginable. I just need everyone to look up the cover. If this isn't going to win, just look up the cover for me, please. That's all.
Thank you.
It is such a good side pony too. There's volume. The bangs have like, oh man.
The shade that looks like the kids are giving her is pure shade.
Future mega states people right there. Amma, where are you on this one?
I'm with Keep Out Claudia. I remember that cover, and I remember it well because, again, like Jen talking about it, it's one of those things where it's like, this was a book that covered an experience that I had that no one really taught me how to deal with, didn't teach my friends how to deal with, and it broke that ground and kind of was like, oh, I can't expect my friends to support me, and here's how they can do it. So yeah, I gotta give it to Keep Out Claudia.
Okay, so Eric doesn't have to make the tiebreaker. I'm gonna switch to Keep Out Claudia.
Whoa.
Oh, okay. I was going to give it to Keep Out Claudia, by the way. And I'll tell you actually the reason. I have a good reason for this. As much as it sounds that Marianne Saves the Day is amazing, based on everything you said, a lot of the reasoning behind it the last round was about how well the Netflix version of it was. And ultimately we're talking about a book category, right? So that was my primary argument for there. But it sounds, regardless, we are sticking with Keep Out Claudia, which gives us a final 2 of 2-seed Jessi's Secret Language and 1-seed Keep Out Claudia. I'm going to start in the middle of the pack with Joelle. Where are you going?
So cruel. Oh man. So Jessi versus Claudia, racism versus racism, ableism versus racism, anti-Semitism versus everything. Keep out Claudia.
Jennifer, where are you?
Keep out Claudia.
Karissa, where are you?
Keep out Claudia, just because Claudia is my favorite. As much as I love Jessi, like Claudia is prototypical cool girl for me.
Amma.
It's a hard one.
I mean, in theory, it does not matter how I vote.
True.
So my heart does go to Jessi's secret language, but I take no issue whatsoever with Keep Out Claudia taking the trophy.
Can I make an extra case for Keep Out Claudia that might help? There is a moment in the book where Kristy, who we barely have talked about, she actually figures out what's going on because finally, like, someone is showing their cards to someone that understands what's happening, and she goes and talks to her parents, and it's so that is an important moment where, like, she's like, oh wait, maybe an adult can help me figure out, and she literally asks her parents, "Is this racism?" because she was so confused by it. I thought that was an interesting moment. Like, every single one is affected. Every single kid is affected by what is happening, and they're all confused because this is not a world they actually understand. They don't think they live in that world.
Mm-hmm. Does that bring you any peace? You also mentioned you wanted to share an anecdote, right, Amma? Is this...
I do. It's not really germane to this particular part of the discussion, but I can share it while I buy myself time to figure out where I land. So very quickly.
There you go.
A good friend of mine from college, Krista, ended up marrying a Scottish gentleman. So she lives in Scotland, and she went to a wedding where she was Dave's plus one, didn't know anybody, and that she was just in conversation with a number of other young women like around our age, and they asked, "Where are you from?" And she said, "Oh, I'm from Connecticut," not expecting them to know anything. And these girls from Scotland and Ireland are like, "Oh, like from the Babysitters Club?" Like, for this age group, irrespective of like location, this is just a series that has meant so much to so many people. Related to that, very quickly, I promise, and then I will come down on a decision. The first season came out during the pandemic, like deep July 2020, didn't have a vaccine, all this other stuff. And I got friends who had read the books, ended up being across 4 different countries together on Saturday mornings to watch it via teleparty, and would just watch it and cry with my friends. And just like, we all shared this experience, and we're now coming to it from different places in our lives around the world. Like, y'all, if you haven't read these books or haven't watched the show, like, get into it. It is a big deal. With that said, having bought extra time, I am going to go with Keep Out Claudia.
I have a question for you, Amma.
Yeah.
What would Baby Nation pick?
Ooh.
Baby Nation, for everyone listening, is
tell everybody what it is.
The Babysitters Club podcast started many years ago now, like I think 2017 or something. And they went through every possible book ever written by Anna M. Martin, but the entire series, the super specials, everything. They went through every single book. They went at it from like a literary perspective, and along the way they built just a community of the loveliest human beings on the internet. And Amma and I kind of met there before I ever met Amma on this universe of the great pop culture debate. And it's called Baby Nation, and you should really get into it because it's awesome.
Started by 2 straight men, by the way.
Yeah.
I love this.
Wow.
It sounds like we have a unanimous decision. So there you have it, folks. Our pick for the best Babysitters Club book is Keep Out Claudia. Do you agree? Was our pick totally distant, or should we leave now and move back to California? Tell us how you really feel by leaving a comment on this episode at greatpopculturedebate.com, or find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, or Mastodon. While you're there, make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast so you hear about what new debates are coming soon, vote in open polls, and even decide which topics we tackle next. If you really enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to like and rate the episode or the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or whatever platform you listen on. I want to say thank you so much to my panel. I couldn't have asked for better babysitters on this topic, and thank you for listening. If you loved what you heard, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where you can get even more exclusive content and you get episodes a whole day early. We hope you have a good one, and remember, everyone is entitled to their wrong opinion. Say hello to your friends.
Babysitters Club.